What's up, everybody? Marvel the Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback. Today we are looking at the Incredible Hulk issue number 3. This issue came out in September of 1962, and today we are continuing the saga with the Hulk here. We got the Hulk, and this is his third appearance here, and we're also going to be looking at the first appearance of the Ringmaster, but that's more on that will be looked at later. So let's go ahead and dive on into today's story. We have going into part 1. We recall from last issue how Rick Jones and Dr. Bruce Banner had created this dungeon of a sort to house the Hulk so that the Hulk will not menace mankind. And so that's where we left off last issue. And now we see that the Hulk, as dawn came, we saw that whenever it becomes nightfall, Dr. Bruce Banner turns into the massive rampaging green Hulk here, as we see right here in this page right here. Awesome stuff. Today's title is The Hulk Banished to Outer Space. So the Hulk is going to be banished to outer space here. What's that all about? We're going to find how the Hulk is banished to outer space. As always, this is brought to you by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And let's go ahead and get on into today's story. We see here that this cell here that's holding the Hulk is also underwater as well. It's right next to, it looks like a stream of water or maybe even an ocean because I see fish here. So we see that Dr. Bruce Banner and Rick Jones definitely planned this out here. We see a little bit of how from last issue we saw that Dr. Bruce Banner told Rick Jones to close him in this dungeon, this little cell here, so that even if Rick Jones falls asleep or gets sick, at least the Hulk won't menace mankind here. And so that's exactly what happens here. The minute nightfall comes, Dr. Bruce Banner changed into the Incredible Hulk here, and we see that Rick Jones is going to go back to his house here or apartment, but he is stopped by the army here, and the army have been sent to search and seek out Rick Jones because we see that Thunderbolt Ross here, General Thunderbolt Ross, has suspicions that the Hulk and Rick Jones actually are working together, that they're buddies, and he couldn't be more correct on that assumption here. So we see that the army bring back Rick Jones. Rick Jones, we recall, is a teenager. I mean, he can be gullible at times, and so what we're going to see here is that he's going to trick Hulk and get the Hulk in their grasp here, all for the sake of testing this missile that Thunderbolt Ross has created. He said that this missile is supposed to help America out. So Rick Jones is suckered into it. So he breaks Hulk free here, and he's going to lead the Hulk right into the grasp of this army base here. And we see that Thunderbolt Ross' plan is coming to fruition here as the Hulk continues to climb himself right into this missile. And what General Thunderbolt Ross is going to do is he's going to launch this missile with the Hulk in it into outer space, and it's going to just continue to go into infinity here, as we see. And Rick Jones doesn't understand this, but we see that Thunderbolt Ross is so happy. He says, "We've done it! It worked! It's the end of the Hulk! He'll never return alive to menace Earth again." So that was their entire plan from the start. We see that upon going into outer space, Hulk changes back into Dr. Bruce Banner, and Dr. Bruce Banner is starting to panic here as he is continuing going up and up into the heavens here. And I mean, it looks like this is bad news for Dr. Bruce Banner. How in the world is he going to survive all of this radiation as he goes into this radiation belt here? We see that his body is then coated with all this radiation from the radiation belt. And so fantastic changes are starting to take place on Dr. Bruce Banner's body. We see that Rick Jones then realizes the master plan of Thunderbolt Ross here, that Thunderbolt Ross's plan this entire time was just to set Rick Jones up so that he can rid the Hulk of the Earth forever. And so we see that Rick Jones is going to play a key part in this as these people leave the scene here. Rick Jones is going to sneak into this laboratory, and then he is going to cause the missile to come back to Earth. But upon doing that, there is this split-second radiation, like electric shock, that hits Rick Jones as he is doing this. And so we'll see exactly how this plays into things as we continue the story here. We see that the missile head is going to plummet right into the earth. We think that Rick Jones thinks that Bruce Banner must be dead from this, but it is still the Hulk that's inside of this missile head. Hulk breaks loose, and he is on a stinking rampage, and he's glowing on top of that. So Rick Jones is running for his life. He's trying to get away from the Hulk. And we see right on top of this mountain, Hulk is just about to get his revenge when all of a sudden Rick Jones cries out and says, "Hulk, please stop." And we see at that command, Hulk stops. He's motionless. He's like a motionless zombie. So we come to find out that upon sending the missile back to Earth and having that electric shock run through Rick Jones's body, Rick Jones now has control of the Incredible Hulk. As we see that Hulk raises his hand, he can sit. Any command that Rick Jones gives the Hulk does. And so we see that he commands the Hulk to bend down so that he can, Rick Jones can get on Hulk's shoulders and go down this mountain safely. And so now Rick Jones is in another predicament. We see that now the Hulk is in his formation here, and it is daylight. And what's going to happen when Rick Jones falls asleep? So we see that Rick Jones is going to bring the Hulk back to his little shack here, his little house. Rick Jones falls asleep. He suddenly wakes and he notices that the Hulk is gone. He's made this huge destruction, and he's on a path of rampage here, this path of destruction, tearing up this local town here. People are in a panic, as they should be. I mean, I would be too if I saw the Hulk in town making a big rampage of things. We see that Rick Jones comes on the scene. He says, "Hulk, you got to stop, and let's get out of here." And so the Hulk grabs Rick Jones, goes and flies away, and he's back into the desert here. So now Rick Jones is stuck, and he's like, "What am I going to do now? I can't go back to sleep because then I don't have control of the Hulk." So what he's going to do here is he's just going to bring the Hulk back to his little dungeon here, little cell, and Rick Jones is going to have to force himself to stay awake for the entire night. So now let's go ahead and get on into the next part of the story as Rick Jones is trying to stay awake. We see in a little bit of an origin story of the Hulk. If you missed my review of the origin of the Hulk from issue number 1, go back and look at that, and it goes into a little bit more detail. But there's also some details in this issue that we didn't know about. We see that the reason why Rick Jones went into the testing area is because he was dared by his friends to go into the off-limits atomic testing range. We see that Bruce Banner then, as we all know, saw Rick Jones going into the missile launch area, and he was caught in the midst of that gamma ray bomb here. And that's how Dr. Bruce Banner's life was changed forever that day. And so there's a little bit of an origin story. Won't go into much detail. We know a lot. I'm sure everybody knows the origin story of the Hulk by now. And so Dr. Bruce Banner and Rick Jones were both involved in making that little dungeon cell there for the Hulk here. It's supposed to be Hulk-proof, but we see that Rick Jones is starting to doze off, and the minute he starts to doze off, we see that the Hulk starts to just pound and pound on the wall here. And so now we're going to be introduced here to the Ringmaster. He makes his first appearance in this issue, as well as all of his gang members here. And we'll learn more about the Ringmaster as we continue this story. What in the world? Who is the Ringmaster? He sounds like a pretty kooky character. So one thing we need to understand about the Ringmaster is that he has this hat and it can hypnotize people. And what he and his circus does is after he hypnotizes people, he robs them. He robs and loots the entire town, and the entire people are just taken advantage of here. As we see, FBI agents are walking through town. Everything has been ransacked. Everything is missing. The entire bank has been just picked to nothing. And so we have the FBI. The FBI know exactly what is going on as they come across this poster of this circus here. So now they got a hunch as to who is involved in this. So here we now are introduced to the Ringmaster, and we'll see soon how the Hulk is involved in all this. See that once again the Ringmaster uses his hypnotic hat here to cause the entire audience to just go into a daze so that the rest of his gang can rob and loot the entire audience here. And so, how does this involve the Hulk? We'll soon find out as we continue looking through and skimming through this story. We see that the circus is then going to come to the area where Rick Jones is at. We see that Rick Jones was successful in staying awake pretty much the entire night, and so he's still pretty tired. He's going to go visit his Aunt Polly. So he goes visit his Aunt Polly just to do something, and she ain't seen him in I don't know how long. We see that then Rick Jones realizes there's a circus in town, and he's like, oh, that'll be fun to watch. So he attends the circus not knowing that the Ringmaster is going to be the one there. And so Rick Jones is going to be caught in the midst of the Ringmaster's hypnotic spell here. And so what is going to happen next? We see that right before Rick Jones goes into this hypnotic state, he uses his thoughts here to summon the Hulk. And so the Hulk is then going to wake up from his daze and come to Rick Jones's aid here. Then the Ringmaster is going to have a problem on his hands as he's now facing the Hulk here. And nothing can outmatch the strength of the Hulk. But we see that Rick Jones didn't tell the Hulk to defend Rick Jones. So Hulk is waiting for Rick Jones's next order, and this causes Hulk to then be taken hostage here by the Ringmaster and his gang here. So now the Ringmaster has the strongest force on the planet Earth here to his disposal. So now we're going to see that the Ringmaster is going to use the Hulk as like a stage prop. And all of a sudden, as the Ringmaster is about to hypnotize this next audience as he's in a new town, the FBI show up and they say that he is under arrest, and we see that Rick Jones is there with the FBI. Then, upon hearing Rick Jones's voice, Hulk snaps out of his chains and snaps the chains like a toothpick, and we see that now the Hulk is on another rampage, and nothing seems to stop the Hulk here. We see that the Ringmaster is going to try to get away. Hulk is saying, I'll stop him. So then we see that Hulk is going to take this entire pole right out from the ground and snag the Ringmaster as the Ringmaster is trying to get away. So now the FBI have in their custody the Ringmaster. All of a sudden, we see that the army with Thunderbolt Ross arrive on the scene to take down Hulk. We see that Rick Jones then says, Hulk, let's get out of here. And so we see that Hulk leaves the scene, and we have a very furious Thunderbolt Ross, who we had thought got rid of the Hulk forever, is now going to have to plan another scheme here, another plan to get rid of the Hulk. And so that's how we end this issue. I hope you like it. It was a pretty cool issue. We learn more developments here in the story as we continue looking at this series. And so, hope you liked it. Go ahead and give this video a like. Subscribe if you have not. And I will see y'all in the next one.